I read the news so that you don't have to. It's time to talk about phantom inflation. Quick recap on the article. So we see Fed decisions apparently distorted by phantom inflation, says Stephen Mirren. And I know you've been waiting, you've been thinking, what the blood cleat is phantom inflation? I'm going to tell you. Hold tight, you little wench. Firstly, we need to understand that inflation isn't meant to measure how much cash you personally have or how rich you feel. No, it measures the cost of living this year compared to last year. That's it, baby. So, much cleverer people than I, who play around with statistics all day, what do? They gather the hypothetical basket, and in that basket includes things like food, fuel, transport, healthcare, and housing. And therein lies the problem. So housing isn't treated as an investment, it is treated as a service that you consume because you consume shelter. So your rent goes in easy, but what about owner-occupiers? They're not paying rent, are they? No, so economists impute the cost. Basically, they said they're not paying it, but if they were, what would they pay? And it's called owner's equivalent rent. So it's hypothetical, no bill arrives, no cash leaves, but the transaction is accounted for. But the problem is that it's kind of slow. It can lag behind the real world by a year or even more. So the argument is that inflation can look high even when in real terms it's falling. So that is what is meant by phantom inflation. Not fake, not ghost, but that it's lagging. Sounds mischievous. Why don't we just remove it? That sounds like a good idea until you understand that if you remove that component, you bias inflation away from renters. For many renters, the rent is their biggest cost. So if you bias it away from them and towards asset owners, they are the ones that will benefit most from the changes in interest rates. It will also make inflation more volatile, more politically convenient, and easier to solve just before elections. And crucially, what you enable politicians to say, actually, it's not our fault, it's the data. And what's interesting is the loudest voices that are pushing the phantom inflation argument are also the ones that are aligned with tariffs, which most economists agree has increased inflation. Fancy that! So let's follow the train of thought. Tariffs increase inflation. Inflation keeps prices high. High rates are politically inconvenient. Suddenly, maybe it's the inflation that's just overstated. Do you see how the story goes? That doesn't mean the critique is wrong. I love a good argument. Ask my old boss. But there is a difference between saying interpret the data carefully and let's ignore the parts we don't like. Once you start redefining inflation to suit political goals, you don't just change a statistic. No, my darling, you weaken the guardrails for independent monetary policy. Once politicians control the measurement, they control the policy. If they control the policy, inflation eventually comes back harder.